Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti Jha. 26th of January was a remarkable day for India. We all celebrated, observed the Republic Day with great fervor, but that was not supposed to be. That didn't happen the way people in power or ordinary people like you and I ever thought it was going to happen in India. The farmers' strike, the Annadatas, the so-called Annadatas, lost their hallowed sympathetic stance, as I would put it. Because if you are the Annadata, you do not deny people and do not behave in the manner that the whole thing ended up as. Look, I have no problem with people exercising their constitutional rights to protest, to talk. That's the civil way to handle a dispute or a challenge. But and I right from the beginning, I have been opposed to the idea that once you give a threat, repeal, then only talk. I said, even this man would not succumb to that threat. I would not suspect that Mr. Modi would succumb to that threat, and they didn't, which is very good. There's one issue that we want to talk about, and the entire thing that has happened, I always say, what is the impact and what is the implication of this? Where do we go from here? So it is a week almost now. So what is going to happen in India, and what does it say about the farmers' agitation, the demands? All right. The second issue we would like to talk about also is the United States. The new president is in power, and he has started to use the Hindi word, the Raj through executive orders. So the man who decried, who was not in favor of executive orders, as he told George Stephanopoulos in one of the TV conversations, has issued more than 40 executive orders on issues that sometimes you feel ridiculous. But even New York Times requested Mr. Biden, go slow, Mr. Biden, Mr. President, you can't rule the country with executive orders because this does not guarantee permanence. That's the important part to understand about executive orders. The next president can always take it away. It's not a law. To discuss these matters and many more issues that will arise out of this conversation, I have great pleasure in welcoming two gentlemen who are very clued on to American politics, are professionals, and are good friends. Dr. Krishna Bhatta from Maine. Dr. Bhatta, welcome to the show. You are a surgeon, you are a urologist, and you also have, as the corner says, an entity called Relax. Relax is an app. I would encourage everybody to have a look at it. It is a meditation portal application that helps everybody individually and collectively. For the purpose of full disclosure, Dr. Bhatta has invited me to join the effort of expanding Relax into the global world, and I have accepted that invitation. But this particular moment is not for that. And then there is the Wuhan virus fighter, Dr. Rakesh Sharma, my dear friend. He's the chief of medicine, director of ICUI in Smithtown, a major hospital. Dr. Sharma and Dr. Bhatt, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vibhuti Ji.
Now, let's begin the conversation with India, because what happened in India on 26th of January is quite remarkable. A farmers' strike, farmers' agitation, taking the shape of invasion of Red Fort, an invasion of the country's capital in the manner that it happened, that the sword-wielding farmers were threatening the police, and in a remarkable way, the police was remarkably quiet. They did not indulge in lathi charge, they did not indulge in firing. In one way, people were aghast. Many people were aghast that the government of Modi and Amit Shah, BJP, NDA, they did not show spine to act. They should have done something. It's a very dangerous thing. My personal opinion is that it's a protest turned crazy. The question arises, what could have Modi done? Would he have fired the shots to control the farmers? It would have made international news if there was even one death due to police firing. I know that, and I think 6 years of the image and the perception and the hard work Mr. Modi had done for making India investment friendly, investor friendly, and the image for himself and the country that he had built around the globe, the narrative would have been the Hindu RSS Hitler Hindutva group are not tolerating of democratic protests. Now we know the reality, and that's what is important. We know that unruly elements, antisocial elements, unsavory elements took advantage of the farmers' strike, manipulated it, managed it, and they did everything. Now the whole world knows about it. So now the story is the strikes are fizzled out. Farmers have returned. So I'll begin with Dr. Sharma. Please do share your thoughts on it, whether Modi did right, the government did right, the farmers screwed up, to use the slang, very badly because they lost the sympathy of people. It's not about protesting their constitutional rights. They went violent. They hit a uniformed policeman. Hitting a uniformed officer, whether army or police, it's insulting the country's law and order. And when you show the pictures of a man in sword trying to trample upon a police officer of any kind, that's defiance. Dr. Sharma.
Thank you, Mr. Jha, for invitation. Before I say anything about the protesters in New Delhi on 26th of January, I want to give a positive news, and that is that this was the 72nd Republic Day celebration of India.
Mhm.
India has come a long way. From 1947 till now, India has come up as among the five top countries in the world,
Right.
not just in popularity or as having the best leader in the world, but Indians all over the world are recognized as intelligent people, law abiding citizens no matter where they go. And India is the major export of the most civilized people to the other nations. So, given that we have come a long way, yes, 26 January was also disturbed by some protesters who called themselves farmers. And as you pointed out, these are really not farmers. If they were farmers, I don't think they should have resorted to this kind of violence that we saw on TV. There are no farmers in this group from Kerala, from Karnataka, from West Bengal, from Madhya Pradesh. Most of them are from Punjab and Haryana. Now, what Modi or Prime Minister Modi did, or his government did, was let democracy play itself. Means people have right to protest, and Modi government was given some kind of insurance or assurance by the leaders of the protesting team that it will be peaceful. We all know that protests are never peaceful. And when they broke police barricades, attacked policemen, and went all the way to Red Fort, you and me both know that these are not simple farmers. These are
Right.
all hooligans. So Modi government did very well that they restrained themselves without firing bullets. They did as much control as possible, but at the same time, policemen really cannot shoot at people because, after all, they are citizens of India. Yes. Did farmers make themselves better by doing all this, or so called farmers? We all know absolutely not. They actually went on suicide mission. If you look at the videos, no one will ever say that these are the farmers. You can easily say the people who attacked police with canes and with swords cannot be farmers. It seems to me that these people were funded by uh, other governments, whether you want to call is Pakistan or Khalistan, or people who live outside India and have interest in weakening the Indian government. But Modi government did very well by not shooting at them.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your feedback because that's what is important here is to remember. I've shared this with my audience in the past that the left liberal Marxist agenda, the extreme Islamist agenda, is to somewhere along the line take down Modi. He has become the biggest obstacle in the path of Congress party and the Indian opposition for consolidation of power. Mr. Modi is a threat. And they are trying to do what they did to Trump here, hound him out. So what you saw happen, I mean, even 30% of the Democrats say that they suspect something went wrong. We do not know. We have no evidence to prove because of that. But something was not okay, like kosher, the word kosher. But Dr. Bhatt, I would come to you with that thought process that India mein jo hua, whatever happened in India, like Sharmaji pointed out, and all of us know now, that it was a very selective farming community that was protesting. Even in the US, in Canada, in Toronto, in London, in San Diego, the Sikhs were the most virulent in their hatred for this farming bill. My question is, are the rest of the farmers in the country stupid and dumb? They didn't know anything about it? And why do you think, in my opinion, the thing failed also because their belligerence. Even Supreme Court gave the instructions to go for a talk, and they put a stop to the whole thing. Even government offered to stop the implementation of the law for 15 months or 18 months. But their bullying tactics was repeal, then only we talk. I think they fell flat on their devilish agenda, whoever was running their agenda. And thus they lost the footing, the goodwill that they could have made use of.
Vibhuti Ji, thank you for inviting me to your talk, and it's always a pleasure to be with you. I also want to recognize about 26 January, the awards that the government awards, Padma Bhushan and all that. I think it's about 119 of them. Shinzo Abe was one of them.
Right.
I think it has really, it was totally done beautifully. I mean, real people who uh, needed that or who deserved it, I think they got the awards, and I really kudos to Modi government for that, rather than the old saying that people buy their awards.
Right.
Um, so, having said that, I think Mr. Modi or Prime Minister Modi is setting up a model in this whole kind of, I mean, you can call him right wing, but to be a leader in that group where honesty, truth, and good governance prevails rather than the leftist media that you said, leftist Congress, and all those people who had a different model. And he is going to be a kind of successful in that. So just imagine for a moment that you are the protester. So you are the farmer group, and you are there, you want to put pressure on. You won't talk unless the law is repealed. That is a stand you take. You want confrontation. You want the government to do something, and then you take advantage of that in the entire world media. And the government says, no, I won't do anything until you do something. I'll wait until you fall out. So there is a cost of that protest. There is a support that you need from local people who can bring you food, who can bring you water, who can bring you help in the tent, all that is happening, and then inside your own fraction, there will be some who want militant, there's some want peaceful, some who want just protest. So all that debate and chemistry is going on, and that's what happened. I think they got frustrated. They didn't know what to do. They thought, maybe being violent to a limited extent, but once the violence breaks, I mean, there is no limit to it. And they lost not only support of local people in whole of India kind of doesn't like it. I mean, the reports I see in the media, and the media that was supporting them is also on the back foot. So they kind of did their own demise. They brought their own demise in a way. So I think the same thing or similar thing happened in CAA, where the government waited it out. I mean, and in the meantime, the country also is kind of in a way losing. But as the time goes, it's like if you sell a option in a stock market, as the time goes, the value decays. Or if you buy whatever you do, but the time goes against you.
Right.
So in this case, the time is against the protesters, and they had to do something, and it didn't go well. So this model, I think, somehow, unfortunately, that model hasn't happened everywhere, where you let the opponent self-destruct. And I think as a strategy, it has worked. I don't know if the government thought that way.
I think, Krishnaji, knowing the philosophical mind and the mind of Narendra Modi, who won after the election last time, he went to the caves of, to rest and recuperate. He's a yogi. He's a karma yogi. So, he doesn't want to waste his time. And I think where I see him make a mark in terms of impact and implication, politics is a tough business to be in. You and I can't become politicians. It requires a totally different kind of a skin to be in politics and mind, both. So here is what I saw. There is one thing which I was talking about, is that our literature of Mahabharata and Ramayana, there are two things stand out for me in there. One is, Mahabharata and Ramayana doesn't talk about any character as evil, good or bad. It only says that's what the person did. And the outcome is that everybody has to bear the consequences of their action. So even the wise man, Ravan, who lost his mind because of whatever reason, or, it's full of the story. I don't need to go about those stories here for the time purpose. But Mahabharata and Ramayana teaches us that part very, very strongly. Shakuni is not called a bad character, but we know what Shakuni is. That is the kind of person he is. Shishupal, everybody had to go through the process of his karma. Even though Bhishma Pitama had the Ichha Shakti about his death, he had to lie down on the bed of arrows. Or, everybody has had that moment that there is a consequence to your action. What you do, what do you join? That was very beautifully, that is my takeaway from Ramayana and Mahabharata. The second one is that both the teams of Pandavas and Ram, both were subjected to 14 years of Vanvas. And Pandavas had one year of Agyatavas. We know the story, right? They had no resources. The biggest lesson that I learned from one of the Mahabharata and Ramayana is they came back. They cooperated, they collaborated, they mobilized resources, won and fought the battle, giving enemy the chance to recover and do the right thing, right? Even पांच गांव दे दो या 5 धूर जमीन दे दो, even that they did not agree. So what I noticed in this, I'm using this particular example for the reason that Mr. Modi realized that appeasement doesn't work. And he's giving a go-by to the policy of appeasement that Indian political system has been victim of for a long time. Entire Congress party rule. Victimization of people through appeasement. That's what he showed in various actions that he took. Corruption, he did not try to win Miss Congeniality Award. He was fighting tough causes. And there is one thing which I know as a person who was part of the leading the India's liberalization story. India needs structural changes, which Congress party may have thought of doing, but they did not implement. This man is implementing, and as we all know, change is tough. Losing a pound of weight is tough, very tough. Putting on is so easy. So Mr. Modi is on a tough path. And that's where you saw 370, CAA coming, where they were defined purposes. So that's what I look at it from that point of view, that he gave them opportunity to talk, postponed the implementation for 18 months. Let's have a talk on each one of the issues. But modernization has to happen. If a farmer can buy this fish and crop he can sell to anybody, why not? But you cannot know the impact of something unless you do it. Sharmaji, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think to some extent, Modi policies or Modi government's policies are good, but at the same time, you just cannot have these traitors act like termites. Termites are very bad. They may look very small. They start from one little portion of the house or one little corner, but slowly and slowly they eat away. You do not want these kind of incidents to happen over and over, like CAA and now this Kisan protest, because these people are acting like termites. They're going to eat the nation away slowly and slowly. So government has to be tough, whether it's now or little later. But you got to have some law and order in your country. You just cannot have 100,000 people or a million people start some movement and undermine the government. It's not the nation of few million people. It's a nation of 1.2 or 1.3 billion. I hear this all the time. Like a lot of my Sardar friends are saying, well, you cannot blame the entire Sikh community for the action of few Sikhs who are acting like Khalistani. My answer is, it's not that we have few bad people. But my problem is that plenty of good people are keeping mum. They don't say anything. That's what I am afraid of. That if 10% people are bad and 90% people think they're good, where is the voice of other 90% people? Why don't they criticize their own community? And this is where we need to act. So that's my one point, that society cannot let 10% people rule over 90% good people. Good people have to speak and speak against 10% bad people. Number,
Absolutely correct.
number two, government just cannot sit quiet. If they have a long-term strategy, hey, I'm glad if they have something and I'm not aware of it, but sooner or later, identify all these people who were in the protest, went on the flagpole on Redford, went on the walls of Redford, had tractors, and were beating or chasing the policemen with canes and swords, have them identified through videos and put them in jail. And then you do whatever you have to do. If you do not teach lessons to other protesters that listen, peaceful protest is fine, but you cannot come down to violence. If you do, this is what we're going to do.
That's absolutely correct. I totally agree with you in that you have to show action. You have to show responsibility. Government cannot sit and wait for others only to make mistake. But the only thing where I'm willing to not be judgmental on actions Mr. Modi is taking is because he has just completed one term. This is the second term. He's trying to uproot the rot of the last 60 years. That's not going to be easy. And that's what you are seeing. And you very correctly pointed out that India is a country of 1.3 billion people. Everything in India is tough to do. because it's 1.3 billion people. It's not a tiny country like Sweden, Finland, or any other country in Europe for that matter, which, or you see in Olympics, there are countries with 40,000 people, So that's the point which is important to remember. We are a tough country to govern. There are too many disparaging elements. I remember, I must share this with you. When I was doing my master's in Gokhale Institute in Pune in 1974, there used to be a magazine called Far Eastern Economic Review, which is published from Hong Kong or Singapore. It was excellent magazine. We used to read that very often for our study of economics. That was a time when Mrs. Indira Gandhi used to talk about the foreign hand in India. Those of you who are familiar with the story would recall that. She used to often talk about CIA, and foreign hand, she used to refer to CIA particularly. The CIA station director was asked this question in one of the interviews. I read that story myself, so I'm not telling you a hearsay. I read that report myself. And, he was asked this question by the correspondent, do you think you are active in India? Is the Indian Prime Minister correct in talking about you guys? And he said, of course, he would not admit it, but he said that India is such an easy country to interfere and destroy. It's such an easy country to play with. India is a happy hunting ground. It has enough reasons, causes, and excuses on which you can divide the people. But we are not there yet. What I'm seeing here is that anti-India forces are becoming active because, my theory is, because Modi is doing the right thing by taking country forward. So look at it this way. Both Owaisi and Abdullah had threatened and challenged Modi. 100 साल तक ये Article 370 नहीं हटा पाएंगे. How did he do it? He did it, didn't say a word to either one of them, became law, अब आप रोते रहिए. So the question here is, the impact and implication which I find about the farmers' agitation is that now everybody in India is angry. We don't want any more Shaheen Baghs and cities held hostage. This is what will lead to people opposing this. It's Delhi mein do baar ho gaya. Delhi ki janta is fed up and tired of the Shaheen Bagh, tricksters coming to do Shaheen Bagh. Shaheen Bagh was done essentially to disrupt the Trump visit. This is done for Republic Day. So until 2024, Mr. Modi wins again, you will see that every measure that he brings about for economic change or societal change or structure of the country to make India big, there will be some group of people who will be unhappy. And they will make that group as a human rights violation. That's my prescription. I say that everything that Modi will do, they will blame it on India, BJP, as a human rights violation. So, Dr. Bhatt, your thought on it.
So, Vibhuti, one of my thought is that you always said, you have said it many times, Trump in USA, Boris Johnson in UK, and Modi in India, and maybe Shinzo Abe in Japan. So the left probably is saying, okay, we got rid of Trump, now the main target is Modi. So it's not only Modi's target because Modi is doing good things in India, but he also represents that force
right.
that they don't like.
Right.
And the problem with them versus Modi is that they want to get under the skin of Modi, and that is not happening. So whenever Prime Minister Modi takes a decision, it's strategic, it's thought out, his cabinet or whatever, and that's causing a problem for them. I'm sure they will still come up with some other things, like you said, and I agree with Rakesh Sharma ji that once you identify them, you have to punish them. So once this event breaks out here, like the rioting or what happened in Delhi before, those people should pay for what they have done. But as a strategy to let it linger and let them do a mistake seems to have worked, at least in these two incidences, and they have also meant that going forward it will be harder to, you know, replicate that model. They may come up with a different model. I'm sure they will keep trying.
No, what is important here is you are absolutely right. Sometimes some strategy works.
Yeah.
When I was doing my training, somebody says you should be tactful as an officer in Reserve Bank of India, because and I asked the instructor, "What is tact?" There is no answer to tact, right?
Right.
It is situational. What may work here may not work there. So right now, dragging them out, let them making the mistake worked. But what there was a bigger element in this one. See, people can be very finicky. You know, average Joe, and I'm part of the average Joe. Like I said only one thing that, yeah, be unhappy with the incident. Be unhappy that the government did not seem to be showing strength in action, whatever they were doing. But don't become judgmental. So people have a tendency to become judgmental very soon, very quickly. It was extremely important for Mr. Modi to win that endorsement from the people. So now I've noticed here is that there are two incidents, two Shaheen Bagh kind of thing that have happened in Delhi area. One arising out of CAA 3370, the other one on farmers. Both decisions are absolutely, mind-boggling decisions and actions taken. Now people in India know that changes are not going to be easy. But what is going to happen, the impact and implication part of it, now people will not allow, people will support the government when it takes the tougher measure now. The government must not seem to be trigger happy. That's the important message. That's where the impact I feel. That now whoever is thinking of the third Shine Bagh in India or this kind of, they will be a worried lot because I'm sure the people, whichever city is surrounded or held ransom to these nonsense, people of that city will rise in revolt and will support at that time the police wielding the lathi to chase those people who will be causing social disturbance, not the protesters. There's a difference that we have to continue to maintain. That protest is different, but you cannot disrupt, as we call in America, your freedom of speech and your freedom of expression cannot take away my pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. That's the way I say a Lakshman Rekha will have to be drawn. You cannot destroy a city to practice your freedom at my expense. And I think this is where the democracies and the leadership around the world will have to come to terms with that part.
Mr. Jha,
Sharmaji, your last word on this.
yes, I just want to add two things. Number one, uh, when fire starts, one should extinguish the fire right away, not let it spread, give it time, and then say, I will come up with a strategy. And let me give you a little example.
Sure.
I went to Srinagar in 1968. It was the most beautiful trip. Everything was peaceful. In fact, the Kashmiris were at that time the most cowardly people of India. What happened was in 80s we let Pakistani terrorists come to Kashmir and start to do all the wrong things, and we waited it out. Now what has happened the last 30 years? Forget about any Pakistani intruder. All the local Kashmiri Muslims are the biggest terrorists in Kashmir now. So what happened was we let the fire just spread all over, and the whole generation of Kashmiri Muslims now is the biggest enemy of rest of India. So you just cannot believe in the policy that let's wait it out because it's not good.
As I said to you earlier on, and I will hasten to add here, no, lethargy and procrastination are not elements of action. You are absolutely right about the Kashmir example. But taking the forest fire as an example again, when there is a forest fire or a big fire, what do? You clear the passage from other places so the fire doesn't spread elsewhere. That also is a fire management technique followed in California or anywhere in the world. That if there is a fire going on someplace, instead you have to clear the pathways on the forest in such a manner that the fire doesn't jump over. That's what happens in California. That's what we saved our school when we caught major fire in Netarhat in Bihar. I fought that. So all that we did, we didn't have, firefighting equipment. We cleared the forest so the fire doesn't spread, let it die. So again, not disagreeing with you at all, but I totally agree with that because in Kashmir matter, since you brought it up, this is another example of where action was required, and I'm with you on that matter. This is what when last January 19th we observed the exodus and genocide of Kashmiri Pandits in Kashmir. It was said with a matter of pride that not one single Kashmiri Pandit became violent, jihadi, or waged a war, or you know, blew up Kashmir various places. They all endured the suffering, right?
Yeah.
So when I told this to my American friends, they say, "Wow, you guys are great. That's really true. That's awesome." But the came flipped momently was the second question. You mean to say none of you fought back? That is a question that draws silence. You mean to say nobody fought back? None of the 500,000 people fought back? You mean to say your country of 80% Hindus didn't fight back? What's wrong with you guys? These are white guys, American guys here. Why didn't you fight back?
Yeah.
Now, we can have justification of all kinds. My question to myself is not KPs or anybody else, but as an aware individual, my question is somebody destroyed our Sharda Peeth, the seat of knowledge and Sanskriti and Saraswati. What good was our knowledge if we didn't save our own self? I'm I'm totally with you, Rakesh ji, in this matter. That this is the impact and implication that now there is an awareness coming this far and no further. So let's switch quickly to in the remaining time we have. We will talk more about it because this is a very important part. If you agree, we'll continue the conversation on the same subject because I feel that Modi will be trying many more things to do. So he has only two options now: try more changes and nip the evil in the bud, as you rightly said. You have to kill the evil before it rises. Stitch in time saves nine.
Yeah.
All those phrases are perfect. I totally agree with you. Maybe this was a situation which required evil forces to be recognized, seen. Now you have the video, now you have the photograph. If there are foreigners involved in it, let's seize their OCI, let's prevent them from coming to India. There are so many things that you can do now. So we do not know what's going to happen. I'm sure Modi and Amit Shah were not duds. They definitely thought through this entire thing. It seems it was a play, and I totally agree with you. I'm also action-driven man. You've got to do it. You got to do it. You've got to do it as we say in America. So the point is the impact and implication. I'm seeing it that Mr. Modi will be bold to take initiatives to strengthen the economy. I have requested him. The message, if it reaches him, is that the next 4 years, all you have to do is to focus on converting the youth power, the demographic dividend, into real profit instead of it becoming a demographic burden in another 10 years' time. So, with these thoughts, I would like to ask you, Bhatta Sahab, how do you see that US President Biden taking off? One thing which I said in my opening statement, he has opened his batting with 40 plus executive orders, breaking all records that were there. So tell us something, youth. What do you think about that? And the way
Well,
it is looking like,
well, he has already taken off, and I suppose he will be gentle in first 100 days and make promises, try to keep them, and he's our president now, and we have to work with him, and the world has to work with him. Mm, that's where we are. I mean, we can be judgmental about him being, the Republican supporters, but at least he's taken off, and Kamala Harris is taken off, and we'll
I
see how
totally
he does.
agree
I
with
mean,
you. I totally agree with you that
yeah,
as the saying goes, after you lose the match, you congratulate the winner.
yeah,
So now they are running the show, which is wish them well. I hope they don't do anything that hurts the country. But as a banker, as a student of economics, as a business person, which we all are, practicing professionals that we are, I'm thinking about it from a different perspective. Is that policy decisions that they are taking is going to drag America or is it going to benefit America? All of you are aware, I'm totally unabashed about it, that I have said that Democratic Party believes in unfettered immigration and doing things and giving things for free, right? That's what we are seeing in play. Nobody is talking about the budgetary impact. What will happen to American budget? So 11 million people are going to get citizenship, path to citizenship. Already people are coming from all over the world, particularly South America, to migrate here. And this country can absorb another 300 million people. The question is, do we crowd the passage and create a congestion, or who is going to pay for it? That's the major question, as in business, we always ask. Whether you buy a car X or car Y, you do it according to what you can afford. So, Sharmaji, what do you think is the visible impact? The other part which I definitely want your comment in the remaining time is the big technology companies. I mean, I was very proud to hear Tulsi Gabbard come out openly and say that it is Adam Schiff and CIA gentlemen who were the chief then and the oligarchs of technology who are the real threat to domestic terrorism. That was pretty bold and statement for her to make against her own party people. So, Sharmaji, you're short.
Okay, just like Mr. Bhatta said, now President Biden and Kamala Harris are our president and vice
Yes,
president.
absolutely,
So we wish them best of luck.
absolutely.
And we as citizens of US really hope that they do fantastic job, that we are proud few years later that public voted for them and turned out to be a best bet. So we wish them luck. We do not want to disrupt their actions just like Democrats did to President Trump when he was elected. So we will not be having some bad thoughts about the new president. We all think that they should do in the best interest of the country and its citizens. It's a little too early to say anything about the newly elected president. So I think we should wait for a year or so before we can say whether his actions are right or wrong. It's only a few days, so I don't want to make any kind of judgment. Yes, he has signed few executive orders. Well, maybe that's what he wanted. Fine with me. Uh, but I think at the same time, if internet news is right that he has uh, removed two Indian Americans from his cabinet post because they had some link with RSS or BJP. If that's really true, then I would say that's a shame because BJP is a political party and it's a legitimate political party and governing party of India. If someone has any kind of relationship with BJP, I don't think Biden government should have any second thoughts about those people. But I don't know if that news is correct or not, but this is what I read. Uh, as far as other policies are concerned, everything depends on Biden's policies. We really don't care if 2% tax goes up or something else happens. Are you fair in dealing with your own citizens? Can you really make 12 million illegal people legal overnight, or because you control both the houses and White House that you have power to do so? Uh, to that, I would take an exception. I think that's where Democratic Party has to be very sensitive to the citizens of US that they really don't encourage illegal peoples to come here and hope after for every 10, 20 years somebody will give them citizenship. And I will be uh, very sensitive to that idea.
Dr. Bhatta, what do you think about it? Because it's important. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I
no,
totally
it is
agree with both
important.
of
I mean,
you.
there are some worry signs, there are some worry signals, and the checks and balance. I don't know how much it will be with Senate and Congress. So it may be a rough ride for people who think otherwise, and it's a lesson for the um, opposition or Republican Party to kind of pull up their socks and shoes. It's like.
No, you say, listen, the president, the White House, Senate, and Congress in the past has been with one party. Obama had some years in which all the three were Democrats. Trump had the same situation. This happens. There's nothing unusual. Important part is the policy part of it. What you
Right.
agree, what you don't agree. We all are here as immigrants. We are not anti-immigrants. Absolutely not. The question is the policy part of it. If people are sitting outside in line to come here, and you encourage, and we call ourselves law-abiding country. We are a country of laws. So if a person breaks the law and you entertain that, then you are encouraging different kind of a signal. That's the point which I'm trying to make say. For example, you believe in a socialist ideology, you want to do something, go ahead, do it. That's perfectly fine. We have survived many democratic ruling rules and republican rules. The country has always moved forward. So that is a good thing. My issue is not that. My issue is how do you see a switch to the leftist ideology that the Democratic Party has adopted? You know, that's the one which I'm talking about. Is America ripe or ready, willing to accept socialist policy, economic policies as part of their economic well-being, knowing full well that socialism hasn't worked anywhere? And I'm not talking about Sweden and Finland. I'm talking about a large country. People want to come to America because it's a prosperous country. Your thoughts on that?
Okay, I'm totally in favor of increasing the minimum wage. I think people who work hard should be paid in a way that they are self-sufficient. They don't have to look for free food stamps or a free handout. So there should be enough minimum wage for hardworking people. At the same time, I do not want government to expand their Medicaid program or food stamp program because you encourage public not to work. So we want people to work and not the other way around that give them so many free things that they stop working. If leftist ideas are like that, then they are wrong ideas. And number two, I want government to invest in education. If someone is willing to educate himself or herself and needs some government help, I'm all for it because an educated citizen is the best citizen of United
Oh,
States.
yes, absolutely.
And third thing is, as you said, the leftist policies. There are some social policies for thousands of years, we have been believing in what family is, what man and what woman is. I don't think 50 senators or some congressmen should decide that suddenly uh, things that have been so wrong are totally normal because 50 senators have power. So that kind of leftist ideology is bad. And that I would definitely object to.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Bhatt, you have the last word in 30 seconds.
Well, I think last word is India-U.S. relationship. I think it should still be good because those policies don't change quickly, but it may not be. We'll have to watch and wait and watch and see how it goes. But I mean, at least the India is doing well on vaccination. It's like front. Rakesh probably knows more than me, but they just gave distributed kind of millions of vaccines to the neighboring countries, which I think is a great gesture. And I, I don't know, most of the vaccines are made there, right,
Right.
Rakesh?
That's right. India actually is the only country that is donating free vaccines to
That's
other
right.
smaller nations,
Right.
and this is the best PR I have seen in years by any country, and India is a leader in doing that, and I hope other developed countries learn something from India.
No, you are absolutely right. This is an incredible work done by the Modi government. They have distributed as far as not only neighboring countries, as far as Brazil.
That's
Oh,
right.
is that
And
right?
the Brazil president went absolutely musical in terms of his paying the compliment to India. And I have read the messages going back and forth. It's been terrific. Even the United States government made the statement that India is a good friend and is doing a good thing by helping people around. So, that's awesome. I'll put it this way to you that, time is coming, as every good conversation must come to an end. So this will come to an end too. Thank you very much for being here. So, viewers, look, the conversation never ends. One issue every day, something new is happening. But what happened in India was important, and I think uh, looking back, looking forward, if you make the approach from that point of view, looking back, whenever it seemed to be that Modi government was losing control over the farmers' agitation, but the end outcome is reluctantly, you have to admit, appeasement was the issue that the government said we will not do it. You issue threat, we will not succumb to threat. If you want to talk, we are ready to talk. We will postpone the thing by 18 months. But they refused. The result is the farmers are no longer the beneficiary of the benefit of doubt. That's something very important. And there is one grudge I have against the Congress government, amongst many grudges I openly talk about, is that Norman Borlaug, Dr. Norman Borlaug, the American agriculture scientist, he was invited by Dr. Swaminathan to address India's agriculture problem. And he was the one who was the first time, I was a student at that time, and I know about it. He was the one who was given the moniker of the Annadatta. It was not the Punjab farmers. It was the Annadatta was called, Dr. Borlaug was called, and there is a politics behind it. India's Bihar UP's Gangetic belt was supposed to be the food bowl of India. It was supposed to be food bowl of India. But the politics of those days allowed Punjab to have this process. Now, my question to everybody was, why wasn't this process allowed in rest of the country? Why Punjab alone? So you gave a special status to Punjab, and that's nothing wrong in it. You made that land very prosperous, but at the same time, you created inequity so much so that Bihar UP Gangetic belt became totally lost. It's now that UP and Bihar have benefited, and now they are becoming big agriculture powers. So, ladies and gentlemen, viewers all, thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Krishna Bhattaji. Thank you, Dr. Rakesh Sharma, for being here and enlightening people with your thoughts. Have a great weekend. Have a great week ahead. See you next week.